I'm gonna turn monetization off on this video because I don't want it to come across like I'm trying to pander about a terrible situation or profit off of a terrible situation. If you haven't followed me on Twitter or you're not part of the Discord community, you're probably like, what is happening? I have so many doubts about doing this. I started listening to a podcast, this one, called The Total Soccer Show. Back in 2004, no, not 2014. Yeah, maybe it was 2014. I'd taken a new role in my employer, and I was traveling pretty much every other week. Sometimes 2 weeks back to back with 2 weeks off, but essentially I was traveling 50% of the time. And I live in a market that doesn't do direct flights. It's not a big enough market to do that. My direct flights are to all the hub cities where you could then do a direct flight. That's my existence. There's some pros to living here, but that's one of the cons. So that meant every time I was traveling to one of the 4 locations to do my job, I had a connection and a layover. So it took me minimum 4 hours to get anywhere. Sorry. And that's a lot of time to spend on a plane and sit in an airport. And it was right about the time of the 2014 World Cup. And I needed something to listen to. And I kind of rediscovered my love of football, soccer, whatever you want to call it. And I honestly can't remember. No one recommended Total Soccer Show to me. It was a search I did on Apple Podcasts. And there was a couple different podcasts that had to do with soccer in the United States, and ended up on this one. And there was just something very different. I don't know if this happens where you live, if you aren't in the United States, but a common trope in the mainstream sports media, like all the, Fox Sports, ESPN, our Sky Sports of the United States will have morning shows. Like, who watches a sports morning show? Like, when I was growing up, there was Sports Center that showed actual highlights, and you watched that before, like, you went to school or work, so you could see what happened, so you could talk about it. But a common trope since then has been Talking Head A versus Talking Head B. And they each pick a side. And it's blatantly obvious that they're picking a side. It's not like their heartfelt thoughts and analysis. They're just picking an issue. The classic example is LeBron James better than Michael Jordan? Which, if you don't know who those people are, it's the equivalent of saying who's better, Messi or Ronaldo? Or is Messi the greatest of all time? Like, they take a topic and they say yes or they say no. Or they say Messi or they say Ronaldo. And they scream at each other. And they talk loud and boisterous. And that attracts eyeballs. And that attracts ears. And that's how you make money as a TV channel. But these guys were different. One, and this is what's kind of like impacted me the most, to be honest with you. you could tell they were friends. And it was like you were sitting in their living room, you know? Like I could see them sitting on a couch talking like this. And it's like you're in the easy chair across the room and you just get to watch. In this case, listen. And just like with a friend, with an actual friend, with a heartfelt friend, you wouldn't just scream at him your points and be like, no, you're wrong because I'm louder than you. That's not a way to have a discussion. You wouldn't do that. They didn't do that. They understood nuance. That issues weren't black and white. That there's a thick, murky gray in between. And that's attractive because it's intelligent. And their analysis was solid. It was a joy to listen to. It is a joy to listen to, I should say. Still is. And what kind of got me hooked is like for the 2014 World Cup, I think they did this in 2014. It's been a minute. It's like been 6 years. I know they did it in 2018, but like they pretty much lived in their tiny office in Richmond, Virginia, and they watched every game, and they rewatched some of those games and did like really deep analysis, and they were critical of commentators that would say of a certain type of player or a certain race of player that they are fast and physical, and how that's boring, dumb analysis. It requires no thinking when you just label somebody that way. It was just solid, and it made you a better fan. It made you, in some ways, it made me a better person, because it just it was like a 5 days a week, because they went 5 days a week at one point. It was like a 5 days a week reminder of how to like think through things and how to talk to other people and to ask questions, even if you didn't disagree, even if you disagreed, to understand the nuance. And the phrase that they kind of coined that I absolutely love is things can be two things. So I guess I didn't say, after I said you're probably wondering what's going on, this guy right here, this one, is Daryl Grove. He's a British immigrant to the United States. I don't know him personally. And maybe that's where I was going with what I just rambled about. I don't know him personally, but how they talked, yes, it's one-way communication, but you felt like they're your friend in a way. Like, I didn't feel like I was being entertained. I felt like I was in on an intimate conversation, like a friend, like a group of friends would have. That's what it felt like. Daryl's dying of cancer. This is not brand new news. He got diagnosed in January 2019. Before this terrible, terrible year. And I think what has impacted me most, so the news came out yesterday, late last night. I had a great weekend, I took a day off on Friday, went for a drive with my family up in the mountains, because that's my happy place. That's where I can let my guard down and no one can reach me on the phone because there's no cell phone signal, and it's beautiful. And got back. Kids are, side note, never let your kids fall asleep an hour or less from the house. Our kids fell asleep, and they were in terrible moods when they woke up, because who likes to be woken up from a deep sleep? especially when you're young and you have no control over your emotions. So my kids were being terrible. We finally got them in bed. For the first time, I checked my phone. We'd used it for navigation, but like I hadn't been on Twitter or Discord or whatever. I think I checked the Premier League scores once when I had like 1 bar of signal. And I was like, well, there's my 1 bar. Boop. And I'm done. And Taylor, the other guy with the beard, had put something out on Reddit because they're popular enough. They have their own fan run Reddit. And he put out an episode. He essentially said, the doctors have said there's nothing they can do. And Daryl's in hospice care at home. Which is inevitable for all of us. Really. But it's especially inevitable when you're diagnosed with stage 4 colon to liver cancer in January 2019. I think what has impacted me the hardest, why I'm like this, is Daryl had found a clinical trial at some point. I think it was last year, but like it was working. Like he had tumors in his abdomen and on his liver. That's the whole colon to liver thing of the cancer. And they were all shrinking. And then at like one point, all the stuff in his abdomen was gone, I think, if I remember correctly. And he had some just small ones left. I mean, this was like within the last 6 months, in the middle of this horrible year. It was like this ray of good sunshine where you were like, oh, everything else is crap, but at least, man, like if there's anybody in this world, it's this guy who's been positive about this horrible diagnosis. He was never down in his listeners' ears. He maintained his cheerful, optimistic demeanor the whole time. And you're like, holy cow, at least we're going to get this win. And so, like, it was trending the right way, I guess. And then like 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, he kind of disappeared. And they said something like, you know, they're looking at some stuff, some options. I can't remember the fine details. I apologize. But long story short, it came out, the clinical trial had stopped working. And they were looking for something, anything. They were trying to, not what we know now, they were trying to get him healthy enough to get him into a new clinical trial. Which I don't understand all the science of, but you'd think you'd just be like, well, it doesn't matter, we might as well try, but I'm not in charge of clinical trials. And so they had an operation, I don't know, yesterday, 2 days ago, this weekend, I don't know, to try and remove something in his liver so he could be healthy enough to get into this clinical trial. And it didn't work. It didn't work. And so, you kind of go, this is inevitable for all of us. We all have an inevitable expiration date. But it's like the shock, I guess, of the... It feels like it's 180 degrees different overnight, is what it feels like. And so it just seems unfair. It just seems unfair. It is unfair. It doesn't seem unfair. It is unfair. When you have pretty much the who's who, at least in the American soccer community, we're going to call it soccer today, okay? Get over it. When you've got the folks that are on TV, when you're talking about all of the athletic beat writers, like the who's who of journalism in the United States around soccer, are all devastated But not only are they devastated, they are sharing their hurt, and they're sharing the joy, the appreciation, the gratitude to how Daryl has lived his life to this point. It gets you here. It gets me there. So I don't know when I'm going to have content out. I think I've got one or two episodes, or I think I've got an episode in the can, and I've got my second game against Old Lady Place, so those will come out. I don't know when my next thing comes out, and I know you get this. I know you do. I know my community understands. I know you do. Because that's where I'm at. Football Manager, I love playing Football Manager, and it may make me see some sunshine in some dark days. So I made, by the time I post this and have some more time to grieve, which sounds weird because he's still alive right now. Maybe I'll be back to normal. Maybe I go away until Football Manager 21 comes out. But I wanted to share, not only for my community's sake, like, you never want to just disappear and stop putting out content. Sure. But really it was to honor these guys. And to honor Daryl, obviously. But it's really hit me hard for, it sounds weird, it's for both of them. They're both married. Taylor, the one with the beard, he and his wife are expecting their first baby in 7 weeks. So I'm sure golly, that's a lot. Such a contrast. And I hope for him it doesn't overshadow that amazing thing happening in his life. But, we had this talk in the Discord today. And the only thing I could, go into their phrase, that things can be two things. This seems like one terrible thing, doesn't it? But if there's any good out of it, I would say it's pretty rare for a man to be able to read or hear, if someone's reading to him, the impact of his life. How it's like the cliche, right? Like you always hear after funerals, I wish I would have. I wish I had said. I wish I had taken time to. I wish. And if you're a fan of their show, if you're a fan of him, we get the opportunity at least to tell him how we feel before his inevitable expiration date, just like all of us have one. So I wanted to put this out not only again for my community and for if there's a gap in content, here's why, sorry, but to encourage you to not leave things unsaid. Johan, I'm not going to share everything that Johan in the chat or in the Discord shared, but I encourage you to join the Discord to look at it. He talks about his dad and not leaving things left unsaid. So I can't remember, it was on a response to the, Taylor put out the episode last night, and it's called like "Sad News from TSS" or something like that. And people replied back, he put the link out, and then people replied under it, and there's like over 200 responses at the time of recording this about, someone was encouraging folks to, it's easy, essentially, I'm paraphrasing horrifically here, it's easy to get lulled into the normalcy of life, and we think about the things that we're going to say when we need to say them, but what we miss and what catches us by surprise is how fast things can change. And that hit me hard, because that's what it feels like. It just feels like, yes, I understand this podcast I listened to, one of the guys has got cancer, and it's not stage 1, it's stage 4. But the fact that everything was going so well was like unbelievable in the midst of horror that is 2020. It was just like this thing of like, oh my gosh, at least this is going well. And then how fast things can change. And that's for all of us. That's for me. That's for you. That's for everybody. So whether it's you need to go tell somebody something, whether it's you need to go do something that you've always wanted to do, do it. Do it. Be kind to others. Be a good friend. Be thoughtful. Think that there's more than one side that you see to an issue. Those are the things I'm taking away from having listened to and felt like a friend, even though I've never met the guy. That's what I'm taking away from Daryl Grove. And I just want to share that with you today. So, I don't know if I'm going to put this out. I just had to get it off my chest and explain if there's a gap in content, that's why. How do you sign off on this? We'll see you next time. Hit the like button. I can't say that. Go do the things that you want to do. You may not be able to do all of them right now from a time standpoint, or you may want to go do something crazy that costs money. You save up your money. Go do it. We all have an inevitable expiration date. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.